All right, welcome everyone. So glad that you're here today. My name is Megan Haskins. I work in customer marketing at MasterControl, and I'm going to be kind of emceeing today. So a bit of housekeeping. If you have questions, the Q&A box is available on the bottom panel of Zoom. That's where we're going to ask you to put all of your questions. We'll use that to do a live Q&A with our speakers, and then if we don't get to your questions, we'll be sure to follow up via email after the webinar. So again, just if you can use that Q&A box, that helps me keep track of all the questions and make sure that we get the right person the right answers. Also, you can use the chat if you have any issues with audio or video, if you need us to slow down. You can message me, which is webinar admin, and I'll handle all of that on the back end. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump in. So today we're going to do quickly introductions, and then we have a customer here that's going to tell their story. And then we're going to have a brief MX demo so that you can kind of see everything in action, and then we'll wrap up with a Q&A. So if you have questions for our customer or if you have questions for our solutions consultant about the product, then we're happy to answer all of those in the Q&A. And like I said, if for some reason we don't get to your question, we'll make sure to follow up after the webinar. So first we have Kelly Trueluck. Kelly is a solutions consultant here at MasterControl. She has more than 20 years of experience in process and validation, and she's just a wealth of resources about both the product and industry. So we're really glad to have her here today. And second, we have Frances Ring. Frances is the Director of Manufacturing and Operations at Ionis Pharmaceuticals. And I'm so glad to have Frances here. So Frances, as you will hear, is responsible for taking his operations from fully paper to fully digital. And so we're really excited about that story. I think it'll resonate with a lot of you who are maybe sort of in that process or you're on paper and looking at the move. So we'll have him share a little bit about that experience today. So I'll hand it over to Kelly and Francis. Like I said, I'm available via chat if you have any issues. And with that, I'll hand it over to Kelly.
Awesome. Sounds great. So Francis, just thank you first of all for being here today with us,
My
and
pleasure.
just give us a little briefing about yourself and Ionis as a company.
Yeah. So I've been at Ionis for about 18 years now. We're a small biotech focused on oligonucleotides. So those are short snippets of DNA that we use for a variety of different genetic diseases. Where Our group specifically is so we make all the clinical trial material for Ionis's. We have about 30 drugs in development, and so we make all the clinical trial material, and then we support the commercial products. Some of which we make at our site here and in Carlsbad, and the bigger ones we make at CMOs, and we support the CMOs as well. So the manufacturing team itself is about 30 people. That includes both on the floor as well as like kind of our validations team and our maintenance team and things like that. And yeah, just like for reference, we have out of those 30 people, we have about 6 people who are actually building templates and things like that in MasterControl.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about what led Ionis to implement MX.
Absolutely. So this was this was about 4 or 5 years ago now. We were looking at building out a new manufacturing facility, and we were really just in that initial kind of just broad design concept, like what would a new facility look like? As we a lot of it on our manufacturing process, but also getting into Pharma 4.0 and other kinds of the digital revolution, because we our existing facility was essentially 30 years old and was definitely could use some sprucing up. And so as we were going through that whole process, and we are talking about collecting more data and things like that, I brought up we should we should move away from paper. We should go electronic. And I distinctly remember my boss and like our validations team basically just poo-pooing that, saying, "No way, no way, we're not there yet. That can't be in the table." And I was pretty depressed about that. I was like, "Man, we're going to a new building, but we're sticking with paper." And so I kind of stewed on that for a month or two, and I started being like, "Well, maybe I can convince them." And around that time, so I heard about Master Control, and and essentially, I said, I think we can we can convince them. We can change their minds. And so I got permission to bring some of my team in to start to do a 2-week kind of trial period and to work with MasterControl to take some of our paper records and turn them into an electronic record. And so we for we spent some time showing off like what we could do if we were electronic instead of paper. And once we showed that to my upper management, they were very enthusiastic. They said, "You're right. We should be on electronic. This is much better than what we're doing right now." Um, and then uh, and then we were off to the races.
Awesome. Yeah, sometimes it seems like formidable, but then it becomes easier than you think it may be.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
tell us a little bit about that implementation process. Once you knew Master Control was the solution for you,
Mhm.
what did that look like?
Yeah, so we spent about a year getting ready. So we make clinical trial material. A thing I like to say is we very rarely make the same thing more than twice. um,
Mm.
that we uh, many things we only make once, and then it turns out we don't ever need to make it again. And even things that work well, once we try to make enough material that they can get through to later stage production, things like that with material we make. So we make a lot of master templates, and we and a lot of uh, but we use a very similar process for all of them. And so we were really excited about Master Control because we were maintaining literally hundreds of production records for all these 30-ish compounds in development, which I say 30, but that 30 is always changing. There's new ones cycling in, old ones cycling out. And that was a big documentation burden on us. And so what we were really excited with Master Control was the idea that we could have essentially for each of our main process steps have just one template that had all 30 in, and we could cycle them in and out as they were used and keep them all ready and up to date. And so that took a while for us to build those. So yes, we had a team working on it, and we spent a lot of time working with our QA and our validations team, really defining like how to make these. Uh and then once we were ready, we went live, and we've been live since 2023, and essentially are 100% electronic now.
Nice. So when you were talking about your templates and being able to make multiple products on one
Mhm,
template, I believe you
mhm.
were referring to our product families.
That's
Can you
correct,
talk
yes.
a little bit about how you're using product families? Like what criteria
Mhm.
is changing in your records that you're able to utilize that one template with?
Yes, we do a mixture of product families, another master control feature called parameters, which are essentially variables that we can change to uh and you can use those as either as text or numbers, and they let us to essentially update the record to refer to different things. But yeah, so product families let us take the same basic manufacturing instructions and make sequence or product specific changes to each one. So example would be so in one of our processes, in most of our processes, we have a step where we use ammonia, but there's one type of product where instead of using ammonia, we use methylamine, which is ammonia but with a methyl
Mhm.
group on it. Um, and everything else is the same, but like you need to use this product instead. And so we for that step we can give the instructions based on the product to either use ammonia or use methylamine. And for operators, it is essentially seamless. Like at issue, we say which product this record is going to be used for, and then they won't see any references to ammonia if they're using methylamine and vice versa. So we so they don't have steps that are getting NA'd or that are just hidden or something. They to them their record is exactly what they're making, and so we use that with so for different formulations. So examples would be different for buffers. If you're making something that's at different concentrations, uh, you can update the delivery quantities to match that concentration, or for products, you need to update the labels and the instructions for what we're making, or the and what but the key thing there for us is that what that means is for all the steps, all the other steps of the record, if we find an error, if we make an improvement, then when we make that improvement, it's already up to date for every single other one. And so when the next time we need to make a product, we know that it's we're always using, the best version of that template versus previously we had to maintain literally hundreds of these and try to figure out what's changed between the first time and the last time in the current time we're
Absolutely.
making a product and things like that.
Yeah. One change is much better than 100 changes, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, what was it like moving from paper? Like, how easily did
Mhm.
your operators adopt the electronic batch record? How did your review process change? Give us some
Mhm.
insight into what that adoption looked like.
Yeah, operators took to it really well. How would I put it? Yeah, they're all young tech savvy people. They were excited to be they were all excited they were getting iPads. Um, and so yeah, so that all went very smooth. A big improvement was definitely on the review side. We previously were requiring reviewers to go through every single step of the record to make sure it was entered properly. But Master Control has a feature called review by exception, where during the template building process we can set conditions under which a step needs to be shown on the review by exception versus if it is meeting expectations, then it can essentially be ignored. So what our reviewers now, don't look at the record itself. They look at what Mass Control's review by exception page, where they can see everything that either was deliberately marked to just always need review, or things that are potentially out of specification, and or things like notes or and things like that. So they can review everything that's actually relevant to a reviewer all in one place, and so that both speeds up the review and also and the other, it both speeds up the review, but also lets them do it in real time. That obviously with paper, when the operators are performing the record, they've got the paper record on the floor, and unless QA is standing over their shoulder, they don't know what's happening. But now, particularly when we're in a hurry, we can have our reviewers, looking at their desks, monitoring their review by exception page, and essentially not quite keeping pace, but keeping up so we can turn records around quite a bit faster now.
Right. So you mentioned two types of devices that you
Mhm.
use, one being iPads on the floor,
Yep.
another being just a computer in someone's office that they're able to see the batch records.
Yep.
Just curious, do you use any other types of devices on the floor, or how are using the devices through the facility?
Uh, yeah, so those are the main 2 is the, iPads on the floor. Once every operator has their own iPad, and it's got, uses Face ID or Touch ID as to recognize them, and so when they're using their own iPad, they can, it stores their electronic signatures, and we got that worked out with our IT department such that that's all nicely controlled. And then at their desk. But those are the 2 main devices we use.
Nice. All right. Well, what changed when Ionis Manufacturing went digital? Earlier in a conversation we were discussing, you stated don't just go digital, but go better in digital.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious,
Mhm.
what does that mean? What changed and what
Yeah,
is
yeah.
better?
This was when we were this is back in 2022 when we were, making the argument for why we should go digital. We took our existing paper records, which the way I would put it is paper records, every page has weight to it, and operators feel it. And so, when you're designing these records, you really are cognizant of, when you add 20 more pages to the document, that's a lot more signatures, that's a lot more reading, that's a lot more just pages to manage. And so when you go digital, a digital page doesn't weigh anything. And so we really looked back at where we felt we were hiding, not necessarily hiding, where we had many steps in paperwork. We'd say refer to this procedure, and then it would say, do that activity from the procedure, but wouldn't give any guidance in the record, because we knew operators would have the procedure in front of them, and when we were trying to keep the paper record small. But so a big thing we did when we went back through is we said let's bring more of the procedures into the batch record so that operators could get more guidance. So a great one, which our safety team really liked, was when we're doing transfers between tanks. Um, you're you're going to have a lot of connections and valves and positions that you need to make sure are set up properly before you start that transfer, and that's both for safety and for product quality purposes. And so what we added in a lot of this, previously that was just a step that said, transfer per the procedure. And then what we did was we went back and we added, what all the valve states should be and where everything should be located, so that operators, they were many times were already doing their heads, doing it, like going through, making sure everything was there. But now we were able to put it into the record. So they had that checklist that they were already doing in their heads, but now on the paper say, yes, I've properly set up my transfer, and now we're going. Um, And that was the thing. It's not that we couldn't do with the paper record, but which on balance we'd said that was on balance, we said that was more space than we wanted to use for paper, but on the digital side, we think we would make the records much better. Another great example is calculations. On the paper records, any calculations have a limit to how complicated you can make them because operators have to actually do that calculation. And so there was, so there were some times when we were not quite limited by it, but we had to be really careful about how we wrote things out for operators to actually perform in the calculator because we wanted them to be able to easily enter it. A great terrible story, again with calculations, which the great thing about calculations, MasterControl, is the operators don't have to do them. It just it does the calculation, so they just see the result. But so we at the end of our process, we all our work is done in a clean room, but at the end of our process, we have our cleanest room, and so it's a pretty small room, and operators put on extra gowning to go into it, and in general, people don't go into that room except to clean it or to perform the operations, and so of course we keep a calculator in there so that operators can perform calculations, and it's a big old calculator that was probably about 20 years old, but with big fat buttons so that when they're all fully gowned up, they can still hit the buttons. And, one day, without anyone's awareness, one of the liquid crystals in the calculator display failed. And, so operators did their I was one of the operators. We did the calculation uh, and, the last number was a 6. And so that's what I wrote down, and my fellow operator, repeated the calculation, verified that it was correct, but that 6 was actually supposed to be an 8, but the calculator liquid crystal had failed, and so it turned our 8 into a 6. Um, and we didn't notice until we started the operation and things weren't working the way they were supposed to. Uh, of course, that was a deviation and a whole investigation. Eventually, we figured out that it was that the calculator was the problem. But yeah, things like that don't happen. That operators don't have to worry about the calculations; they can just see the result. And so that definitely makes the process a lot smoother as well.
I love that story because that's such a simple failure, but I imagine that took some work to figure out what in the world failed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, my boss, I remember standing in the desk with my boss, and he's like, how did you guys both fail to enter this in the calculators?" He's showing me, his calculator on his phone, and I'm doing it too, and I'm like, "I don't know how we did it." And then we went back down and got the calculator, and
And the calculator still didn't work, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Do you have any other examples of how MX has enhanced the accuracy and the compliance over at INS?
Let me see. Yeah, it comes on both sides, but, we, uh we can definitely a great one would be labels. We now, wherever we make a label, we take a picture of it and attach it to the record. Previously, we had to, take a label and stick it onto the paper record to track, what we were putting on. So that way, reviewers can fully see, what all the label material really looks like as it come out. Which I think our reviewers really appreciated. Another great one, yeah, is around timestamps. Um, and the paper records, obviously, we were not having operators record the time at which they initialed and dated something. They were just recording their initials and date. With MasterControl, you get a timestamp, which I think really actually gave our reviewers a lot more insight into our process than operators really wanted them to know. There was actually multiple instances where reviewers said, "Why?" Said, "Looking at these timestamps, you guys reviewed this, pretty far apart." And the operators would say, "That's how he's always did it. You guys never complained before." And they said, "Well, we didn't know you were doing it that way." So we try and so we adjusted some of, retrained operators on how we could do some of those activities with more, more within time verifications and things like that. Based on that insight that previous viewers just didn't even have.
Gotcha. I've got one more question for you.
All right.
As you continue to mature using your electronic batch record, I just want to know what's next for INS and Master Control. Like, what are your goals in the future?
Yeah. Let's see. So our big activities this year with MasterControl. So we love them. We love MasterControl so much that we, after getting all of our batch records into MasterControl, we're now actually trying to get a lot of our other forms. So we're adding cleaning forms, other tracking forms, things like that. That our new big project is trying to we still have these hidden paper forms to hidden some of our SOPs that operators are using, and the goal is to slap all those away and either get them into the batch records or get them into master control. And so that's going to be probably about another. I think it'll in total be about another 50 templates that we're going to write this year. Um,
Wow.
where and Which again is going to be really great. We've got big plans to eventually have a lot of the things kind of link with each other, so we can track. So, you can reference the cleaning form that you filled out, and to say that the tank is clean when you use it in the record and things like that. We're pretty excited about bringing even more of that of our operations into master control. We think it's where operators are comfortable, and it's working really well for us.
Mhm. Nice. All right. Any questions out there for Francis?
You Yeah, we do have one question. So, someone asked Francis about, would you kind of say that you're using like basic functionality of MX, or do you feel like you're in a more highly integrated state? Um, and then what is working in that state, and then what are you still seeing challenges with that you would like to improve?
Let's see. The I We are I would say we're still almost scratching the surface for master control, but we're definitely not just basic, but we're lower intermediate. It's yeah, so yeah, places we definitely wanna move towards. We have we still have a lot of operators transcribing entries from equipment, things like that. So one of our projects this year is improving, our facilities our the infrastructure for our facilities kinda data, and part of that goal is to build the hardware, get everything set up and ready so that a 2027 goal will be to have equipment feeding entries directly into mass control rather than having operators transcribe them. We think that's obviously the most far and away the most common error we see is transcription error when operators are reading something and they don't enter it in properly. And so we would like to we'd like to eliminate those and really show and then you get just the ideal uh traceability from the equipment went directly into master control and things like that. So that's where we definitely would like to go. Um in
Yeah,
terms
and
of
a shameless plug for barcode scanning and things like that to
yeah,
create some of that automation. Kelly might touch a bit on that, but I won't stop nagging you about barcode scanning.
no, no, I that our that is one of my goals is to get our tiers management to update labels to add barcodes so we can scan them. And I'm gonna win that battle.
I love it. And then someone else asked, can you explain the process that was taken to create those initial templates, and how did you standardize that?
Yeah, so we uh uh that's how would I put it? So yeah, so a lot of it was so building and standardizing it was a project. We spent some time learning and working with MasterControl on kind of the first rounds of it, and then we literally spent we did a full afternoon with representatives from our validations and our quality team all together to really put down a procedure of what we call them kind of the minimum expectations for every kind of step in our batch records would be. That would be because every step in mass control has probably a dozen different settings that you can enable and customize to the step. And many of them are going to be shared. And so what we call them is kind of the minimum settings so that for authors to say, like, here's what the corrections reasons are going to be for each kind of step. Here's what kind of steps are going to require a verifier. Here's what kind of steps are going to require a witness. Here's what kind of steps are going to require um, uh, the decimal precision, kind of all these kinds of things. And we put that into a procedure for operators to follow, and that really gave both reviewers and authors a really strong guidance for like what they're looking for and what they're doing. And so yeah, so it took quite a while to build all those, uh, and some yeah, just a lot of coordination with all the groups to define like this is what the expectation is going to be, and now we build to that, and also review to that and things like that. Is that like
Yeah,
sort of get you where you
definitely.
want it?
Yeah, that's great. A few people are kind of asking the same sort of trend, which is when you look back at your implementation, What do you think what were kind of the challenges of that? And then is there anything you would have done differently or any lessons that you learned through that implementation process?
Let's see. The biggest challenge uh was so a mistake I made. I which I like literally in my review that year I owned up to it. We was uh we had a period where we're always busy. Everyone's busy. Um, and so we had a period where like progress was not like faltering, but like we thought if we could get everybody to just get their heads together and like push for like a month, we could like get it going. And so we convened like a meeting with again with QA and validations. Everybody be like, okay, we've done all this prep work. We're pretty close. Like, can we do this push? And they were all like, whoa, 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 you're dropping this on me with just a month to go before you want to start. Like, you know, so many red flags. And so we didn't. We said, how about 4 months? And they said, yes, we can do that. And then we did. Things like that. But yeah, I think I got over my skis, I would say, and I mean, it definitely annoyed some people, and but it also did finally give us the push we needed to get over that hump and actually implement, as it felt on our end that things were getting closer and closer, but like progress was reducing and reducing. Um, the in terms of the startup, um, we conveniently it worked out for us that uh, we had just the way it worked out, we had one, non-GMP production run that, was requested from our either clinical or partner, I can't remember which, and so we were able to identify, so we said, like, "This will be our sensor process validation, PQ kind of run. We're gonna take this whole thing through with our templates, making something," and so that let the operators get familiar with it and, and things like that, so that definitely helped, and identifying you know, that non-GMP run, like, came along and made the GMP runs that followed much more comfortable for everybody.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and we hear that a lot, like, creating a dress rehearsal, whether that's actually making something or creating kind of a manufactured version of that is really helpful for people. A few more questions. So,
Mhm.
how much IT support did you feel like was required in that transition? Do you feel like IT was heavily involved, or was it mostly you? Or maybe would you have done that differently?
They were pretty lightly involved. Definitely on the iPads, they were very involved. That just we wanted, we really a lot of that setup of the iPads was not on MasterControl. It was on us and IT to make sure they were configured, to meet, 21 CFR compliance kind of expectations around electronic signatures and things like that. Um, and yeah, that went smooth. Our IT department was very open to it. And that went well. It's a little bit funny, but yeah. So the budget for MasterControl still kind of fights back and forth between IT and manufacturing. So like currently, manufacturing pays for MasterControl, but IT pays for our support. And MasterControl keeps being like, "You guys want to combine these two?" and and IT is like, "We're not going to pay for that part." um, but no, IT's been really good. I'm definitely trying our 2027 goal of getting instruments to directly upload to Matchwell. That'll be another big IT project. But no, but they're very our IT department is very excited for Match Control and they've been very supportive.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes along with involving those departments early on so that no one's surprised when it hits their desk, right? Whether that's a lesson learned on the back end or on the front end, let it be advice to you guys. Involve those people early so that they understand and they can be key stakeholders in those conversations. Um, and then we're gonna move on to the demo because I don't want to take too much of Kelly's time, but I do have one question that I want to ask. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about what that template building team looked like? Like how many people were involved in building those master templates, and how did you kind of determine those key stakeholders for those?
Yeah. So we have so at the start we had 3 template builders. We've now increased that to 6. So at the time for startup we had 3, which was basically me and two two trusted members of my team. And then and then the other we already had licenses for 3 more builders, and so we gave 1 to QA and 1 to validations, in order and then 1 to IT, um, in order to yeah, so that QA got to see the template building side and have, even though they weren't gonna be building templates, it let them really get as part of the review state, they could really get into it and dig into it, to help familiarize themselves, and then similarly with same logic with validations. Um, and then, yeah, and then with that's yeah, it's obviously not a lot of people doing actual building, there's only 3 of us. And so, yeah, so we got a lot of support from MasterControl to convert a lot of our paper records into, like, initial draft templates, and, which is a big boon, and then we did what we wanted to make them exactly how we wanted them. But definitely starting it's pretty overwhelming to start from a blank template. So it was really helpful to have, uh, I think, Dan Gregoire was the one who did a lot of the initial stuff, and so, yeah, we really appreciated that.
Yeah, and I'll just add, for those of you that have not been through this process, our team is not gonna make you build your master templates on your own in a vacuum. We have people Dan has built countless templates, and so we have a team that will definitely support you through that process and provide some recommendations based on what we've seen, based on industry, based on similar companies. Like, we'll definitely support you through that process to hopefully mitigate some of those oversights, because for many people, like Francis, when you did this, like, this is the first time you're doing this, and so we definitely have teams that will support with that.
Yep,
So with
absolutely.
that, I'm gonna hand it over to Kelly. Francis, I'm gonna put you back in the hot seat after the demo for some more questions. Kelly, you're muted.
All
There.
right. Are we ready for our MX demo now? All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Um, go. All right, guys. So today I'm going to be demoing the functionality of the MX module by walking you through just a super simple batch record. And this is going to include connections to our quality and logbooks modules also. And this is going to allow you to view docs, launch forms, access logs directly from that production record. After we step through that batch record, we're going to look at our streamline review process, which we refer to as review by exception. And I know Francis touched on that a good bit, but I'll show you what that looks like. And then we're going to look at our insights module, which provides some analytics of all that data that you're able to gather with an electronic batch record. But first, what we're going to start with is looking at the perspective from the operator. So when you open the batch record, this is what the operator will see. What this is really just some header information up here at the top that contains just your normal information, your template, your product ID, revision, and all of that. It's going to build a signature manifest. As more and more operators complete tasks, that will automatically populate. And in addition, if you have QX, it will also summarize any of the documents referenced and any forms that you launched. But over here on the left is our navigation pane, and this is what the operator is going to use to step through the record in a very linear fashion. Um, I've divided this up into 2 sections, but you will have the ability to configure this in as many or as few sections as your process requires. So as we go into the first section, the pre-process setup, you can see here I have some blue circles on each of these line items. What this indicates is that these sections are ready and active to receive data, whereas the second section does not have the blue dots. This is because I've set up section 2 to require predecessors. So it's not going to allow me to put any data in section 2 until section 1 is completely filled out and completed. Now, you'll have the opportunity to mix and match to either allow your operators to work concurrently or to force them to complete steps in a certain order. So let's drill down now first here to our line clearance task. You can see here right off the bat, we have a hyperlinked procedure. This connects directly to our QX module. So with just a simple click, they can open up that procedure. In addition, it is also performing a training check in the background. So if I am not trained to this particular procedure and listed in this phase, it's not going to let me complete the task. And we'll see in just a few minutes what's going to happen if I am not trained. We can also insert any types of images into the instructions. So if you have charts or diagrams that would be helpful for your operators, know that you can include those in any of your instruction steps. Now we'll go through now and we'll just complete our line clearance, indicating that we've removed all of our other material. And now we're going to confirm that the room is cleaned and released to production. Now here I have linked to a logbook. We do have logbooks as a separate module, but they are able to be linked from the production records. So if the operators ever need to check to see if a particular task has been done, or if they need to complete that task themselves, they're able to do so. So in this case, I would just choose the room that I'm working in, and then I could look at this log and see, oh, looks like they're still in progress. If I needed to complete anything, I could enter into this row and complete any of the assigned task. So once that is completed, on this particular phase, I am being prompted for a verifier. Now, we allow verifiers to approve two different ways. First of all, they can approve just right over my shoulder. So if my verifier wanted to just come on my device and drop in their name and electronic signature, they could do so. They could also verify from their own device because we do allow multiple people to be in the record at one time. All right. Now we're going to document our equipment. And as soon as I try to enter this section, I'm getting a training pop-up letting me know that I am not trained on the procedure referenced in this section. So if in real life, what the operator could do is just click here on this procedure, it would take them directly to that training module where they could read, they could take any of the exams that needed to be taken, and then return back to the section in, just 5 minutes later to complete their task. But that's going to give you a lot of peace of mind knowing that when auditors start pulling those training records associated with the production records, that you're not going to have any surprises of anyone not trained. Now we do also provide you an override function, which I'm going to use right now, just so I don't need to train on that procedure. This override function could be used for any extenuating circumstances, such as on-the-job training, or maybe you've completed a classroom training and it's not entered in the system yet. So we do allow supervisors to override. So now we're going to enter our equipment. Again, we really want you to be able to not have the typos on the equipment. So we highly recommend barcoding. We also have multiple choice, or we can build drop down so that you can make sure you select that equipment and there's no typos in that. As far as calibration dates, if I went to grab this date and it was out of calibration, I'm going to get a warning immediately. So we're not going to have to worry about checking these, 2 or 3 days later to make sure everything lined up. You're going to have a notice immediately if something is out of calibration. Now, if I had just selected the incorrect date, I can correct these entries. I just simply come over here to the drop-down arrow, choose correct entry, and choose the correct date here. Typically, we do use correction reasons. This is helpful to make sure the operators are using the same terminology from operator to operator, and it also enables this to be a reportable feature in our Insights Analytics module. So once I've updated that date, you can see my warning went away. If I choose to show the correction, again, you can see a very neat correction, including what the original date was, what it was corrected to, but so much neater than trying to draw a line through something and write a new teeny tiny date somewhere along with the reason. Now, like I said before, we do highly recommend barcode scanning. I've got a barcode scanner here. I don't know if you can see it. But this is simply $40 barcode or off of Amazon. It doesn't have to be something fancy, but it's going to enable you to scan labels, to scan material IDs and such, to bring those in automatically. You can bring in more than one field too. So if there are additional fields embedded into that barcode or that QR code, we can bring those in with one scan. All right. Now, a lot of people, when we go electronic, really want to talk about integrations. So I've got an example here of what it could look like if we were to integrate with an ERP. Now, every customer is different on how they like their material set up and so forth. Some people like their production records pre-populated with the lots and the amounts that they should be using. Other people want to be able to just scan and pull in information and have that inventory automatically reduced. So we can use those features to push and pull those inventory numbers so that you don't have to key those items. So right here, I'm just going to simply scan a lot, and it's going to pull in all that associated information from that ERP. Now, if we had assigned lots through our ERP system and this was not an assigned lot, it would actually give us an error to let us know that you can't pull that lot into this record because that's not the one assigned. But again, we have a lot of different ways we can set that up that would really just involve a scoping call on what your desires are for your system and process. All right, now we have completed section one, and you can see that as we completed that, section two has now opened up. So we're going to continue on here with our process. Up top here, we do have a weighing formulation where it can be adjusted based on the batch size. So that can be updated dynamically based on the batch size we are making today. This section two is also using product families. I didn't take out all of these components. You can see all three of them are used here. However, based on what I'm making, I may not use each of these components. And again, I've opened this up so you can see what is happening, but know that the operator, I could make that invisible to them and they would just be prompted for those components that they needed to use. So I'm going to come down here first, and I'm going to enter this weight of component A. And now I'm going to enter the weight of component B. Now, if I am out of spec, again, I'm going to get that warning right away. So I'm going to catch that in real time so I can hopefully do something about it, right? It does me no good to catch it 2 days from now, right? We want to make sure we catch those in real time. Now, when we need to attach a file to an electronic batch record, we can do that in two ways. The first thing we can do is we could choose to capture an image, which will open up our camera app, and we can just snap a photograph and it will upload automatically. Or in a more traditional sense, we can browse our computer and just select the appropriate file that we want to attach. Now, Francis talked a lot about his next goal is to be able to integrate and pull in information to the batch record. And typically we do that by use of a capture data button. So if this particular step is associated with the scale, all the operator would need to do is click this capture data button. It's going to go out and pull in that information from the scale which it is connected to. So that allows you to bring in that data seamlessly, again, just preventing any type of transcription errors and preventing any additional verification that is needed. All right, now let's talk about our mixing section. Here we have a machine setting for your RPMs needs to be between 100, 125. This particular setting, I have chosen to configure it to reject the value automatically if it is not in the specification. Now, I could also turn on a qualification that would prevent me from moving forward in this record for any of these next steps until this is complete, until this is in spec. Again, that's just going to prevent me from setting up my machine incorrectly before I start this process. Now we're going to document our mixing start time. We can calculate durations and put time limits around that duration. For this one, I have just set a duration limit of about 15 minutes. So once I click the stop time, if I've not achieved that 15 minutes, it's going to give me a pop-up. And it's going to ask me, are you really sure you want to stop your mixing? And if I say no, it's going to let that clock, keep on running. And if I say yes, it will give me that real-time error. But that's really just is a huge prevention tool from, missing that oven time by like 2 minutes, and just a lot of just deviations that are associated with the times just being slightly off. Now, if we do have an out of spec value and we want to take immediate action by launching a nonconformance or deviation, we can also do that right here from the record. Again, we just come down to this drop down arrow and select to launch a form. And based on the forms that I have permission to launch, I can choose the associated form. And once I launch it, it is connected right here within the record. So we have that hyperlink automatically there associated with that step. All right. Now, MX does allow you some flexibility to have conditional paths. So if you like to include things like rework or some additional steps, maybe that certain products may or may not have, depending on the run, we can build those in. In this case, I'm just inspecting to see if my sample is uniform. If it is, great. I don't need to do any additional mixing. But if it's not, I'm going to allow myself to do one additional mixing. So I'm just going to pass this, and you can see that the rest of these steps were automatically marked no longer applicable. So you don't have to worry about someone having to mark them, step by step and maybe accidentally forgetting one. All of that is taken care of. Right. And finally, we're going to go to packaging. And here you see a table. The table might look a little bit strange when you first glance at it, but these numbers here in the headings are really just step numbers that have been collapsed just due to space constraints. We start out with the table empty, and we start a row anytime we have data for that row. Again, that's just going to eliminate a ton of NAs when you finished with the table. We just only initiate the rows that we need. So here we're going to choose our drum type. And then we can enter maybe a tare weight and a gross weight, and it can calculate that net weight automatically. Once I complete that row, it takes me back out to the table. And here you can see in bold this 101 number. This right here is going to sum the total amount that I have packed. So when I do my second row, I'm just going to come fill this out real quick again. It's going to again have that total amount that I've packed, and that's going to be able to be used elsewhere in calculations. So again, once we come to the final section with our yields, everything should already be calculated by the time you get to the step. So again, it just minimizes the number of verifications. It gets rid of all of those calculation type errors that operators have to do, or people having to plug and chug, multiple times in order to get those values approved. All right, finally, we're going to look at labeling, where we're going to select our date and have it automatically calculate the expiration date. And then just continue on with our verification process and attaching the image of that label. Again, the way the operator would typically do this is with that capture image button where it would open up that camera. But since I'm on Zoom, I'm going to just go pull a generic label from my files and complete the record. Now, our record has been completed now. However, as we've been going through, it has been building a dashboard that is summarizing all of our exceptions. This has been ongoing. It's not tabulated just right there at the end, so you can check this at any point in the record. But the dashboard is going to summarize any of our exceptions, telling us how many steps corrected, how many limits have been exceeded. And then down here on the bottom, it's going to summarize all of those items that do need to be reviewed. So if I come down here, 2 limits exceeded, and I want to dive down into this mixing duration, I can see the step right here. I don't have to flip back in pages. I don't even have to click back in this record. It provides it for me right here. I can see that a deviation was launched. It looks like everything has been handled. And so I'm probably good to go. And it is worth saying if something is not a true incident, but it is a step that you always want someone to review, we can configure those steps to always show up in review by exception so you can be sure that they get the attention that they need before you sign off on the record. So once all your steps have been reviewed, we could choose to accept or reject the record and then just simply sign off here at the top. All right, well, I've got a few more minutes, so I do want to touch in with our analytics module. Once you go electronic, you'll have so much data, and it is so important to be able to use that data in order to just streamline your processes, understand what is really happening on the floor, and make those right decisions to make sure that your processes are flowing as they need, that those bottlenecks are taken care of, and that you can truly track and trend without having to put all those tons of hours into your process in order to do so. But this right here is just an overview screen of the current status of the lot. You can see here I have the same data presented just in two different ways of what is actually on the floor. I see here in this blue section that these are data complete. They're waiting for review. So I know that I've got a significant number of records that are waiting for review. Um, got 50% of them in process. But then, I have some other ones that maybe are open and they haven't quite got started yet. So again, that's just giving us a snapshot of what is happening and what is in process. Now, remember that every single input is yours, and we can filter any data that we need. So if you have, I don't know, a particular product type, you want to see how many lots you've made over a particular time frame. We can simply do that by filtering. This particular report is just a list of all of your data with filters over here on the right. So I'm going to look up a particular lot number. So let's say I have a lot number. I've discovered that lot number is causing me some issues and I need to contain all of the product that has used that. I'll simply enter the lot number. And in just a matter of a few seconds, it's going to be able to pull um, every batch record that has used that lot number. Now, in paper, this could have taken hours or days to pull those records and to flip through manually. But this right here, you saw it took 2 to 3 seconds to pull up every lot that did have that lot number documented within it. And finally, you're able to track and trend your data and have it update automatically. This is showing some simple widgets that are just calculating the average value of my pH and concentration, as well as trending the pH and concentration on some control charts. So again, this makes end of the month charting super simple. We can just pull these graphs down, export them, and you can use those for any type of review that you need to take care of. All right, so that was a mouthful, but I do want to stop here and ask and see if you guys have any additional questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. We do have a few questions. Let's get started with Francis, and then everyone. We have about 5 minutes, so if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and we can get started with that. So, Francis, one of the things that I think we touched on, but we maybe could talk a little bit more is we made the comment you don't want to just replicate your paper processes when you go digital. But someone asked, how closely do your electronic templates mirror paper? And we noted that they're different, but what do you think the biggest differences are and why are there those differences?
I would say it was probably 85 to 90% addition and maybe 10% subtraction. Uh, um, that obviously every step is in there for a reason. And so there wasn't too many places where the paper records were doing something that we like just didn't need to do. But it was in almost all cases, it was taking the opportunity to add more instructions, add more pictures, add more directions, add more guidance for operators. As simple as adding hyperlinks. So in the paper record, it could say the procedure number, and the electronic version is a hyperlink to it, and so an operator can just open it right on their iPad and things like that. I don't know if that fully answers the question, but that would be kind of the way I put it. It was almost all addition, not addition via subtraction.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. And then someone else asked on the like one of the first slides we talked about how you have I think it's 30 people on your team and 6 of them are builders. Can you talk about a little bit about that builder role and what the
Mhm.
function of that is?
Yeah. So builders are Megan and reps can talk about the pricing, but it's more expensive to have someone who can build than someone who can just execute a record. Um, so we view that builder role as two things: as one, something you earn, but also it's a growth opportunity. So we do want we do all of our operators, or not all, but most of our operators, are experienced people who are looking to grow and gain responsibility, and we view the builder roles as a good opportunity for them to take ownership of their process and author their templates and things like that. But not everybody gets to be one because that would be very expensive.
Yes. And it just helps to make sure that the people that should be making those decisions are making those decisions. Not having too many cooks, I think, is important.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure if this is a Kelly question or a Francis question. So, someone said they have several large sub-assemblies. Is there an event workflow that can be opened for a production record and then assigned to an engineer for investigation? I think this is probably Kelly.
As far as an event,
Yes.
okay, yeah, the event can be assigned to individuals to take those tasks. That would be within our quality module, so that we can launch that within MX if needed. But then the task can be assigned out to the appropriate person.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. I think that we have answered most of the questions. We have a few questions lingering, but they're in-depth questions. So I'm going to have Kelly and I will follow up with those via email. If you have questions that have come up and you're not sure that you want to ask them right now, you can reach out to your account team. If you're not sure who that is, you can just email me at customermarketing@mastercontrol.com and I'll get you to the right place. The other thing I just want to note is you will have access to the recording. This recording will be made available to anyone who registered, and you can always share this. So if you have someone on your team that you wish had caught this information, please do share that with them. The recording will be available. You can reach out to me via email if you'd like next steps and more information, but you can expect an email with that recording definitely by Friday, probably by tomorrow. If there's any issues, you can just shoot me an email. Thank you so much, Kelly and Francis. I really appreciate your time and everyone's time for attending. Have a good rest of the day.